After 5 years of waiting, the Obi-Wan Kenobi project is finally here. Last week, we got episodes 1 and 2 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So let's dive into it and discuss the things that stood out to me from Obi-Wan Kenobi episodes 1 and 2. Let's get it.
Hello there.
What's up, Acolyte Squad? My name is Prince, and I'm an urban acolyte. I'm here to run through my notes and share with you guys the things that stood out to me from episodes 1 and 2 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. This isn't going to be a rundown and explanation of Easter eggs and all that other stuff, because other people do that. I have no interest in doing that. As I'm watching the episode, I just write the things that stand out to me, and then I'm going to basically share my notes with you guys, the things that were going through my head as I watched the episode. Now, I'm going into this completely blind. I have not watched a single trailer about the Kenobi series. I didn't read any of the articles. I hadn't watched anybody on YouTube, because almost everybody talking about Star Wars on YouTube is not saying anything that I really want to hear. I'm just going to be real with y'all. So, like I said, I didn't know what to expect. All I knew was that Obi-Wan would leave Tatooine. He'd probably be rescuing Leia or going on some adventure involving Leia's abduction. And I knew a whole lot of people were complaining about how the Grand Inquisitor's head looked. And that was about it, right? So, to the notes in my discussion. All right, so the first thing we saw was that little montage of the prequels before episode 1 started. It ended with this thing, Order 66 and these survivors. And given the recent thing that happened in Texas, this was very traumatic, right? That these younglings, they're doing their Jedi Tai Chi lesson, and then Order 66 goes down, and the teacher is trying to fight off clone troopers, and she gets taken out, and they flee, right? Like I said, with what happened at that elementary school in Texas, it was hard to watch this, right? I know there's a certain group of people who like to comment and talk about how Star Wars forces this political agenda, but this was a thing that really happened, and it's part of Star Wars. And then what happens? We talk about like when art mimics life, but what happens when life mimics art, right? That's not something that anybody talks about, and I guarantee that Jeremy and the rest of the bitches at the Fandom Menace probably are not talking about that scene and the stuff that happened in the real world, with black people at the store in Buffalo, New York, and the two churches in Orange County, California, this school, in Texas, but everybody will be quick to laugh at, oh, Master Skywalker, there are too many of them, what are we to do, right? Everybody will laugh about that, but it's not funny when it happens for real. And so it was hard to watch that, right? And that's how this started out, right? So I said, yo, man, they're really going there with the things, and they're really gonna hit you with some difficult stuff to swallow that happens in Star Wars. And I'm seeing that in the dialogues that I'm reading, online, the few places that I see stuff about Star Wars, right? Is that Obi-Wan, people were saying they don't like how Obi-Wan has this Last Jedi vibe, that Obi-Wan is very much like Luke in The Last Jedi, where it looks like he's lost faith, and he's like, the Jedi are over. He said the time of the Jedi is over. Go to town, let it go. Obi-Wan seems to have shut himself off from the Force. He struggled to save Leia. It's like he's reestablishing his connection to the Force, right? Which is kind of a prediction, but let me save that for either later in this video or a different video, right? Back to the Order 66 survivors, right? The question I asked, said they're showing this for a reason. They're not just going to show, oh, here's some random kids scattering to the wind, some younglings scattering to the winds, right? Is that I felt like either these youngling survivors are part of this story, another story they're setting up for later, or both, right? Because everything in Star Wars is connected. Now, one of the things that I heard is one of the youngling survivors is going to be Riva, right? And that's going to tie into whatever she has with Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Now, the next thing we see is this guy, a surviving Jedi, in this cantina on Tatooine. And so my immediate thought was, not knowing anything about this going in, was, oh, he must be one of these youngling survivors. What's his story? What's going to happen to him? Or are they just showing this guy because the Inquisitors are here and they're just establishing for people who haven't watched the Rebels, that, yo man, Inquisitors, they hunt Jedi and they take them out, and they're establishing this guy solely for that reason, right? But this guy is there on Tatooine to find Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so my question was like, well, why is he looking for Obi-Wan, and how did he know where to go find him, right? If this surviving Jedi could find Obi-Wan, where we saw Maul and Ezra, they had to combine a Sith holocron and Kanan's holocron together to, do some fortune telling to locate Obi-Wan. But this guy already knew where to go. Now, maybe, between that time and, 7, 8, 9 years later, Obi-Wan had figured out, yo, man, I better do more to cover my tracks. That's a possibility too. I really don't want anybody else coming here looking for me because I got important work to do. But, I wondered, like, how does everybody know where to find Obi-Wan? And what is because very early in this episode, they established that Riva's got some kind of obsession with Obi-Wan Kenobi. What is it? Why is she so obsessed, right? So where I asked that question about this surviving Jedi who ends up getting killed by Inquisitors, I had the same question for Riva, right? But, Obi-Wan, very much like Luke, he tells the guy in their first meeting, the time of the Jedi is over. Go to town, let it go. Just like Luke says to Rey, it's time for the Jedi to end, right? He's like, yo, man, I'm going to teach you, what you need to know about the Force. I'll give you 3 lessons, and then you'll understand why it's time for the Jedi to end. In order to do what you want to happen, you don't need the Jedi. You just need to go do it. Go do it, right? Get to action, right? And also very much like what Yoda eventually says to Luke, right? He was like, you couldn't save Ben Solo, but there's one you still can, right? Bail Organa says it to Obi-Wan after Leia has been abducted. You couldn't save Anakin, but you can still save her. So there's that other mirror to between Obi-Wan and Luke. And what I think happened, because there's the story in the one of the Obi-Wan focused comic books flashback, Black Chrysanthemum comes to Tatooine, and he I think he was going to kidnap Luke, and Obi-Wan saves Luke and Uncle Owen, right? And at the end, Owen is like, yo man, thanks Kenobi, but yo man, don't come around me and my family anymore. Like, get the hell on. And I think that at that point, Obi-Wan came there thinking, yo man, as soon as Luke is toddling around and he's showing signs of the Force, or showing signs that he's like his father, that he's got some similarities and traits to Anakin, being a pilot and tinkering with stuff. Yo man, I'm gonna take him in. He's gonna be my Padawan. I'm gonna train him up, and it's gonna be all Jeezy, baby, right? And we gonna keep this Jedi thing going, baby. We gonna keep it going, baby. And that ain't what happened. And I think over time, Obi-Wan just started to kind of lose hope and lose focus, right? He's in his little cave, his fortress of solitude, and he's like he can't even reach out to communicate with Qui-Gon, right? When Leia falls, he struggled with to use the Force to save her, right? It's like he's cut himself off from the Force, all right? Say, oh, well, it's like riding a bike, right? But if I have a talent and then I don't use it over time, I start to forget, right? If you don't use it, you lose it, right? And Obi-Wan has lost it. And so I feel like this is gonna be like it's gonna be just like a video game, just like freaking the Cal Kestis game. What's it called? They're working on the sequel now. I guess it'll be out next year, right? Where Cal is, as he goes through, he gets stronger with each level, and he starts to remember his training. And at first, he can't force pull anything and can barely force push anything, or I think he can't force push at all when you start out. I don't remember. I haven't even beat that game yet, so maybe I ought to live stream my session where I sit down and play through it, so I'll at least know the story and what happens, since a sequel is coming, and apparently the Obi-Wan series lines up with the time period that the sequel to the game occurs in. So some people are thinking there'll be some crossover or cameos possibly. What's up with Cal Kestis and all of that? But like I said, with Cal Kestis, he has to reestablish his connection with the Force, remember his training. Obi-Wan's got to do the same thing, right? He's got to open Luke in, I think, The Rise of Kylo Ren talks about for some people, the Force is like a door that's like cracked open, right? Oh yeah, he did say this. One of his students was asking like, why is Ben so powerful, right? And he said for Ben Solo, the door is all the way open. It's wide open, right? And it's just, the Force is just rushing in, right? Rushing in and out. But for some people, it's just a crack, right? It's just a crack, and the Force is trickling in and out, and they just that's where people start, right? But it's up to you to reach your potential. It doesn't, where people start is where they start, but it's on you and in your training to reach your full potential, right? Force ain't got nothing to do with that. That's all sweat equity, right? So Obi-Wan's got to put in that sweat equity, and I think that by the time we get to the end of this series, he will have started to reestablish himself, his connection to the Force, and really be that Master Jedi Kenobi, right, that we all know, and that he will resume with his training, and he will have had his faith restored, right, as a result of his contact with Leia. That's what I think is going to happen on this adventure. And then other things that could happen. Maybe Anakin scares the crap out of him. I don't know. But but what we find is that Leia was kidnapped so that Riva can lure Obi-Wan out of hiding. And my question is, what does Riva know? Right? Obi-Wan Kenobi we end with, he didn't know that Anakin survived. He didn't know that Anakin survived their fight on Mustafar. But how does Riva know? How does Riva know that Anakin is Darth Vader? Right, I talked about this a few years ago in a video on the other channel. What I had said was that there was a slow movement within the Empire where people knew that Anakin was Vader, and they felt that Anakin should be the true Emperor. So one of the things that I'm holding on to is that Riva could be a part of that contingency within the Empire, that they're not loyal to Palpatine, they're loyal to Vader, right? The other thing, I want to know, why did they look down on Riva? Like I feel like she's got a jersey, she's on the roster, but she ain't really on the team, right? Like Golden State getting ready to play Boston in the NBA Finals, Golden State in 5, right? And, you think of the Warriors, Clay, Steph, Draymond, Andrew Wiggins. You got a guy like James Wiseman from Nashville, my play cousin James Wiseman, right? But he's injured. He was the star rookie that got drafted, and then he messed up his knee and he sat out all this season, right? But he was starting, right? But then you got, I started to say Kuminga, but he's going to be a stud eventually. You got guys that show up and you're like, who? Not Otto Porter Jr., because sometimes he does some stuff, right? Or Toscano, some people might not know him. You might be Toscano. All I know is Steph and Clay and the Splash Brothers and Draymond, and that's it, right? So, like Riva's like one of those people where it's like they played, 5 minutes at the in trash in garbage time of the game, and they might have got 2 points and a couple of rebounds and an assist. Uh, they were in on the court at the same time as Steph or Clay was still in. They passed the ball to Clay. Clay hit 2 threes and they got 2 easy assists, right? But it's like, who is that? Like, where did they come from? And I'm not saying this is how Golden State views him, but this is how everybody, like, they just there cheering for that guy because he's on the home team. But if he was somewhere else, wouldn't nobody be like out in public? They're like, you play for Golden State. It's like, what college do you play for? Right? They don't even know that he's on the team unless he's wearing the jersey, right? Riva I feel like she's over the top. Like she's trying to force her way into the dark side. She's trying to force her favor with Vader because she's in a position where it's like, you might get cut from the team, homie. And I want to know why. Why do they look at her like that? And why is she trying so hard to tap into the dark side? I could easily see her turning either to the light or back to the light. Because I don't know if she was one of these Padawan survivors or if she came through, what is it? Was it Project Harvester? Or I don't remember. Well, whatever it was that they had going, the deal they had going there on Arcanis, where what's the black kid from Star Wars Rebels? I said that if I had to choose anybody that we've already seen from canon be Finn's father, Zara Leonis, his sister Dara Leonis went to Arcanis, but she wasn't there to be part of whatever General Hux's father was doing. She was there. They were like taking kids out of the Imperial Academy who had the Force, and they were gonna become Inquisitors, and I guess they would eventually go to the Inquisitorius, after they had their initial training there on Arcanis or whatever was going on there, right? So I thought maybe Riva's come up that way, and she wasn't a Padawan. She wasn't a Jedi who turned to the dark side like the other Inquisitors who were former Padawans or whatever, or punk bitches like the Grand Inquisitor who turned to the dark side just because he couldn't check out his favorite book in the Jedi Temple archives. And that is true. That is actually what pissed him off. Was it what's the old lady librarian? She was like, he was a temple guardian and whatnot. And she was like, you are a fool. You're a brute. You're here to do nothing but be, muscle. You are hired muscle. And no, there were like the higher archives where I guess you had to, you had to have that G17 classified, or they wouldn't let you in there to see what was on the microfiche. Right? And she said, you're too fucking dumb to go up here. No. And that's what turned him to the dark side. The Grand Inquisitor is a punk bitch, right? So, but I don't know if Riva was one of these younglings who ran and turned, like even the chick that's that was in the Inquisitor that was chasing Cal Kestis. Was she the second sister? Right? Even she had been, former Padawan. Right? But what about Riva? Because she looks young, so it's like 10 years had passed. Well, where so I've seen people complain about her acting and whatnot. It's over the top. She doesn't get it. I'm like, I think her acting is on par with what the character is the character's trying too hard. I think that's the whole point. But everybody is an expert on everything on the internet, even if they don't know jack shit about it. It's a force of diversity and she sucks, and she's only there because they needed a female person of color, and shut the fuck up, right? Like the whole point is, you got an angry black woman who's over the top, and she's angry, she's black, and she's got imposter syndrome, and it's all coming out. That's how I read the Riva character. Now, I mean, you're more than welcome to disagree. You know, I'm not gonna say agree to disagree because I don't believe in that shit. I'm just gonna say you're more than welcome to disagree with me and to hold your view, and I'm gonna hold my view, and that's just gonna be the way it is, right? You know, my one of my closest friends, you know, he said exactly that, and I was like, that's how you feel. You know, I don't think that, and you know, and just because you think that way and you think the exact opposite of me when it comes to most Star Wars stuff, it's not going to end our friendship. I'm just going to say, well, you know, that's how you feel, bro. How's how's your training going, right? Next subject, you know, because at the end of the day, it's just Star Wars, right? It's just art. We all have our different points of view, right? You know, let's talk about stuff that matters, like training. Right? And that's something that you know that's kind of one of the things that turned me off dealing with the Star Wars community. Is some people it's like Star Wars is all they have. But anyway, that's all I got to say about Obi-Wan. Yeah, that's all I got to say about the first episode. It was deep. Predictions, I don't have any right now. I think I gave my only prediction was that I feel like this is going to play out like a video game, right? Is that Obi-Wan is going to have his faith restored in the Jedi, is going to reestablish his connection to the Force, and that you know, whatever's going on with him eventually running into Vader, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what that has to do with the story. I'm more interested in Riva because we know what's going to happen with Obi-Wan. We know that somehow Leia's going to get returned to Tatooine, right? Or Alderaan, sorry, because she's got to grow up and then Alderaan is going to get blown up. I did write that Alderaan reminds me of something from Star Trek, which was interesting observation. But you know, we know that's going to happen. But Riva's this new character. I'm interested to see what happened. How does the Grand Inquisitor survive? It looked like he was killed, but he we know he's got to come back, be back for Rebels. Um, so I mean that's stuff we know. But Riva is something new, and I'm interested in seeing what happens with her story. How does it play out with the third sister? So that's really all I got to say about Obi-Wan. Yeah, that's it. So you know, thanks for coming and checking out my rant. I'm gonna keep the next video shorter. I had a lot of caffeine before I started recording. I just kind of rambled on, but yeah, that's really all I got for this one. So thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Y'all keep on breathing, and may the force of others be with you always.